Well, thanks for staying with us on the program this morning. We looked at that report, oil spill, a curse or a blessing, and you heard the plight of the Niger Delta dwellers in community where oil exploration has thrived over more than 5 decades. Now, in coming to our second half of conversations this morning, we'll be looking at 2 states plagued with their own peculiar challenges. In Rivers, a breakdown in the working relationship between 2 arms of government has seen the declaration of an emergency rule and the suspension of the governor, his deputy, and members of the State House of Assembly. But this has been questioned this morning by 11 PDP governors who have dragged President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to the Supreme Court, asking and questioning the constitutionality for such suspensions. Whilst that is the case, there's also been an appointment of 23 administrators in the local government councils by a man who was saddled with the responsibility of being the sole administrator of the state. Big questions coming in this morning, with the Federal High Court sitting in Port Harcourt given up until April 14th for an explanation as to why Rear Admiral Ibas, retired, went on such a route. Then we'll come to Plateau State, where there's become a perennial issue of what the governor is calling genocidal attacks in Bokos local government area, leaving over 56 persons dead. Now, to discuss these issues this morning, we're joined by a security consultant and a fellow of the Nigerian Army Research Institute, Dr. Steve Okwori. Good morning to you, Doctor.
Yeah, good
Welcome
morning
to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Doctor, let's start in River State.
Yes.
Events preceding now, different reactions to that emergency declaration by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, questions on the Assembly House, the Senate's ratification of the issue as well. But now we're seeing 11 PDP governors taking the matter to the Apex Court, questioning the constitutionality of the suspension of Governor Fubara, his deputy, and the members of the State Assembly. Let's get your thoughts on this story that continues to evolve. Each day we wake up, there's a new angle to it.
Yeah. Let me start by saying that the state of emergency declared in Rivers is constitutional. The president has the powers to declare such an emergency. Now, where the president does not have the powers, the constitution did not spell it out. It wasn't stated in the constitution that he has the powers to suspend or the democratic structures, like the governor and the State House of Assembly. The constitution was silent, or is silent on that. So, since the constitution is silent on that, and the president has deemed it fit that he has the powers to do that, there's nothing wrong with testing it in the court, right? So that the court will make a pronouncement. Now, what's the duty of the court? Is to see where, is to correct the wrongs. You know, for us now, what the president has done, according to the PDP governors, what he has done is wrong. It's not constitutional. So it's for the court to interpret that section of the constitution, whether the president has the powers to suspend the governor. I think it's a good thing to do. Let us hear from the court. And once that pronouncement comes or judgment comes from the court, since the Apex Court, it's going to be binding as long as we practice democracy.
And on the position of the PDP governors, yes, they are alleging an undertone of what they call power grab. They had likened it to a situation when the dead president, Olusegun Obasanjo, suspended Governor Chibi Joshua Dare in Plateau State over the Jos crisis. Whereas they were both PDP in the workings of things. Yeah. Now, these PDP governors are alleging a power grab ahead of 2027. Is there room for such a suspicion?
Yeah, you see, we are talking about politicians here. And anything they do, anything they say, they speak politics. For them, it's politics that is at play, right? But I am even worried about the mandate, you know, that the PDP governors are even trying to see why they are even going to court, right? Because we have seen in this country where governors of state, very recently, the governor of Osun State sacked a democratically elected local government chairman, right? And the chairman of the APC party went to court. They approached the court and said, no, they were wrongly removed. And very recently, the Court of Appeal gave judgment that those sacked local government chairmen by the current governor that happens to be a member of the PDP as well, that they should be reinstated. But the governor did the opposite. He went ahead, conducted another local government election, and swore in another set of chairmen. Right? Now, who gives the governors power to also sack local government chairmen that were elected? So, if the PDP governors come out to condemn the act of the governor of Osun State, they didn't do that. Right? So, why are we being selective here? You choose to support this, and when you know that that is wrong, and you choose to go against what you think is wrong and all that. Listen, these people are leaders in their own right. What is condemnable should be condemned, and what is acceptable by our laws, should also be acceptable. So you don't choose what to condemn. None of the PDP governors came out to condemn the act of the governor of Osun State, who happens to be a member of their party, for doing what is wrong. And we have seen everywhere, even in Benue, the immediate past governor conducted a local government election. People were elected. The current governor came in, sacked them. So who gives them? Is it the Constitution that also gives them power to do that? The answer is no. So if they are going to court, I mean, the Supreme Court had made pronouncement against sacking democratically elected local government chairmen, but they still exercise those powers, So now, if the point I'm trying to make is that who comes to equity must come with clean hands. How clean are the PDP governors that they are coming to question what the president did when they are also doing what is wrong in their state? I think that if you have powers as a governor to sack democratically elected local government chairmen, then I think the president too has the powers to suspend a governor, because I think that both of them are exercising their powers and all that, But for me, whatever they have gone to court to do, I think is the right approach. Let us hear what the court has to say, with regards to that.
Now, the other angle to this conversation was the issues that necessitated the suspension. The president cited the fact that there had been threats of vandalization of pipeline. At some point, there were even accusations against the suspended governor that he teleguided those who vandalized the pipelines that we saw in a statement he made, saying that when the time comes, he would give the youths instruction as to what to do.
Yeah.
You're a security expert. Did those statements in any way teleguide them? And were there any telltale signs of a further breakdown in the piece of rivers that necessitated the suspension?
Yes, absolutely. You see, as governor, when our leaders in this country, sometimes when they make certain utterances, I begin to wonder, right? And you see, it takes me to the point where I begin to ask questions or talk about leadership recruitment process. You see, we just pick somebody from nowhere and make the person governor because you are an outgoing governor, you have the powers to make anybody governor. Now, there are qualities that comes with leadership. There are certain utterances that you are not supposed to make as governor. You are the chief executive officer of the state, chief security officer of your state and all that. And people look up to you. When you make certain utterances that can trigger the peace and security of your state, then for me, you are already failing as governor. Now, a governor is supposed to be a peacemaker, right, that should see how to unite the state, irrespective of political party. Because I see governors as servants, because they are performing certain responsibilities on our behalf. So they are performing the services of a servant. Governors should not make utterances or put themselves in a position as if they are lord and masters. People voted them into power, right? So when you begin to make certain utterances and all that can trigger violence or something, I think as governor, he missed it at that point, because I watched him on television making some bogus statements, comments and all that. These are really not issues that he should be looking out for. As governor, the peace and stability of his state should be his priority, right? And not the issue where you keep dragging. And it is the dragging between him and the state assembly that has led to this state of emergency. All of them were on a high horse, I was here and I told you that for me, the only way they could resolve this issue was for the man himself, the governor and his predecessor to come together, the two of them sit and they have this conversation, right? If they had had this conversation before now, these things that we are seeing today wouldn't have happened. And moreover, if not for the state of emergency that was declared by the president, for me, I think that the crisis in Rivers would have been something different by now, because the state assembly members would have been hell-bent.
Impeach him.
Yes, they would have been hell-bent in impeaching him. And of course, you know that what that would have amounted to. His own supporters and appointees and all that, they would have gone ahead to see how to try to see how to stop the impeachment. And of course, you know that what would have led to chaos in that state and all that. So I think that what the president did was he applied the doctrine of necessity, right? Doctrine of necessity application now doesn't mean that measures you take must be in our constitution. These are extraordinary circumstances or measures that you take, you know, that you try to see how to address certain issues. Like, for instance, in the case of Goodluck Jonathan, when he was acting president, if you recall, late President Yar'Adua did not transmit letter of power to the state to the National Assembly, transmitting power to Goodluck Jonathan to act as president on his behalf while he was away. There was no letter like that was transmitted to the National Assembly. And when his case, his ill health became very critical and all that, the next thing that the Senate President then did, David Mark, was to apply the doctrine of necessity, you know. And if Nigerians said no, what Senate President David Mark wanted to do then was not contained in our constitution, of course you would know that something different would have happened in the country.
The agitation from the Niger Delta.
Exactly. So he now applied the doctrine of necessity. So why didn't we condemn it that no, why would Senate President David Mark have done that what he did was not in the constitution? But they had to take those measures, right, to see how to avert certain issues that were confronting us at that particular point in time. So if the president, current President Tinubu, did what he did in Rivers and suspended the democratic structure, I think it's a doctrine of necessity that he applied there.
Now, this doctrine of necessity has seen a situation where there is no winner, there is no loser. Mm-hmm. But the assembly members who were looking to have the governor impeached are also suspended. The governor himself is also suspended. But in the bid to reconcile the warring factions, do you think that there can be any reconciliatory committee that would see the predecessor, the FCT minister, and his godson come back to a round table to find a way so that at the end of this 6 months period, those democratically elected structures will be reinstituted? Yes.
If the warring factions or political gladiators in Rivers want peace and they want the restoration of the democratic structures back, I think the best thing for them is to see how to come down from their high horses. Because I've said it that all of them are sitting on their high horse. They must have to come back, come down and have this conversation, you know. And unfortunately for them, they have brought in somebody that is not from their state, that has taken over the affairs of the state. Don't forget that the essence or the reason why we have a sole administrator now is to see that he comes to restore peace and stability and all that in the state. Now, when the president was giving his speech, he said that initial 6 months. What that means is that it can be
it's subject to review.
And renewal can be extended. So if they don't come to the drawing board now to see how to settle, you understand, and the crisis continues like this, there's a tendency that there might be another extension by 6 months. That's 1 year gone, right? So I think the best thing for them to do is for them to just drop their egos and just come have this conversation, you know. And don't forget that even the suspended State House of Assembly also commended the decision of the president for the suspension and the emergency rule.
Some of their members who are also abroad on training, that has sparked some reaction in the media as well, asking what their suspension means, if they can still leave the shores of Nigeria and attend legislative training outside the country. Care to comment on that?
Yeah, they are preparing themselves for the eventuality
of a return
to office. There's nothing wrong with that.
Now let's come to the sole administrator.
Yeah.
Vice Admiral Ibas retired. His job as sole administrator is now being questioned because less than 24 hours after a federal high court sitting in Port Harcourt issued an order restricting the removal of the 23 local government chairman in Rivers State. He proceeded to appoint LG administrators under his position as sole administrator. The technicality of this, is it that in governing Rivers State in the interim, 23 local governments is so much of a headache that he needs 23 administrators?
Now, I want to even ask who are the people? Are they an organization or group of persons that took the sole administrator to court?
We've seen statements from PANDEF. We've seen some lawyers in Rivers and some civil society organizations.
Yes. I think they should just allow the man to just be there for that 6 months that he's assigned to be there. Now, dragging him back and forth. Now, democratic structures in the state have been suspended, right? So, for me, I think that there's no need for them to begin to see how to drag the man to court, that he appointed this, he appointed that. For me, that's distraction. The man is there for a purpose, and anything he does at the state is subject to approval by the National Assembly and the Federal Executive Council. Right. So, whatever he has done is still within the essence why he's there, why he has been sent there. The essence why he's there, just the way I said, is to ensure that there's peace, stability, and all that in the state. So, dragging the man to court, why he shouldn't appoint sole administrators of local government for the period that he will be there, or why he has appointed the Rivers State
local government administrators.
Yes, I think for me that's distraction. There's already a suspension on anything that has to do with democracy, at that level, at the state. So they should just allow the man function, right? So that at the end of the day, when the man finishes spending his 6 months, he will pave way for the return of Fubara and the other members of the State House Assembly.
Now, the issue is even beyond that. Is now more on the subject of local government autonomy from the financial autonomy aspect. Now, in Rivers, the local government elections were also declared null and void and were to be conducted before the situation happened. It's the subject of the allocations that's accruing from the Federation accounts, the transparency required in its disbursement as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that, in his defense, this appointment of others to somewhat be a part of the process, not just using his office as sole administrator to decide what the funds will be used for, is some level of transparency?
Remember that the Supreme Court gave a judgment that caretaker committee is alien to our laws. And they also gave a judgment that local government funds or allocation should not go to caretaker committees except democratically elected local government chairman. So right now we have, let me say, a caretaker sort of committee.
Arrangement.
Yes, in place. So I don't know, is that not a contradictory step against what the Supreme Court has given, the judgment the Supreme Court gave? So, but just the way I said, since we have found ourselves in a very different situation in Rivers, so I think that certain things were allowed to pass, right, based on the circumstances that Rivers State have found himself or itself, right? So certain things I think the government will just overlook them, because what they are experiencing in Rivers is not peculiar to other states, right? So I think that certain things should be suspended so that the man should have easy sail while he propagates the affairs of the state, right? So whatever the issues are, PANDEF and those civil society societies that are kicking against what the sole administrator is doing, I think that they should just rest their PANDEF, for instance, should be looking out for how peace should return to the state. Because whatever they are saying now for me is distraction. They are trying to distract the sole administrator. The man has the next 5 months or so, let them see how they support him and ensure that the reason or the purpose why he was appointed is achieved. Because PANDEF members are elders. They are leaders in their own right. And they have a River State Elders Council or so too. I have heard statements or comments coming from members of the River State. They should take the position of elders and decisively address the issues confronting Rivers when it has to do with the political instability, right? These people are human beings. They they can put them on the table and talk to them, and everything will become normal.
Now, on the part of the judiciary, the only arm of government not suspended in Rivers State is a question of a judgment of a federal high court in Rivers where Justice Adamu Mohammed has given up until April 14 for an explanation to be made by the sole administrator as to why he has appointed these 23 local government administrators. Many are calling for reforms of our judiciary and to strengthen the trust in our judicial system. Do you think that once courts of the law issue judgments and these judgments are somewhat delayed on implementation by political actors, or in this case, sole administrator, it somewhat makes a mockery of our judicial system?
Absolutely. There's a whole lot that is wrong with our judicial system. And I don't want to begin to talk down on them. A whole lot is wrong. You see, court orders obtained at different levels, and that Nigerians begin to see and ask questions. How would these things even happen? Even lawyers themselves even ask questions, right? And when you see some of these orders, you just clearly see that they were procured, right? You know, and you see, the justice temple is an institution where the respect that should go there is clear, as in, you know, but the way they have, the judiciary is being looked at now, it's appalling. And I think that the current CGN is talking tough, you know, and all that. A whole lot needs to be done. There needs to be this reform. Corruption, you know, there's this compromise. My brother, while I'm here, I know that we know what is wrong and what is happening at the judiciary, what needs to be done. We have our Law Reform Commission. How well are they functioning? We have obsolete laws. You know, how well are they fine-tuning our laws now that will stand the current test of time? A whole lot is wrong. But are we even prepared as a country to do the right thing? That's the question, you know. So the wheel of justice is so slow, you know, especially when it has to do with criminal cases, for instance, a case that one expects that should be dealt with, you know, prior trials and prosecution within a time frame, you know, a period. It takes so long, you know, and for me, when it takes that long, it doesn't serve as deterrent to people that are thinking of even going into crime, right? So I think that a lot is wrong with that judiciary, and they need to see how to really reform that arm of government.
Now, it's interesting when I read through the statements signed by the River State Secretary, the state government, Professor Ibiaba Warika, where these institutions and structures of governments that were suspended now also has a clause as instructed by the sole administrator to reconstitute the chairman and members of the River State Electoral Commission ahead of this to be rescheduled local government elections. I think that's where eyebrows are not even raised. If this chairman and members of the River State Electoral Commission, as appointed by the sole administrator, are the ones who would oversee this election that would be reconducted, do you see any concerns as to why this chairman and members of the boards will be somewhat partial?
No. Why would they be partial? Even the sole administrator that is there, he doesn't know who Fubara's group, or he doesn't know Wiki's group, or whatever group that we have, or they have in Rivers. Just the way I said, the man is there to do a particular job, and then within a time frame. So people that he has appointed into that Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission, I saw names of people. I have not done background check on them. I don't know their integrity and all that. But from Professor this, Professor that, Doctor this, Chief this, and all that I saw in that list of appointees, I think they were carefully selected, if you ask me. And the purpose of why they were appointed is to come conduct local government election, right? So I don't see them taking side, if not compared to the last chairman and other members of the board that were there in the last the last commission. You know, those ones clearly you saw the outcome. The chairman of people that won, their parties were not even known, right? In 2 days, 3 days, they conducted an election, and the 23 local government all won by one political party that is not known. In Rivers State, we only know PDP and APC.
APC.
So where did the APP come from? So from there, you clearly see that the last members of the commission were clearly partial. They just conducted the election based on the instruction of the governor that these selected people must be declared winner. And that was what happened, right? So unknown people, unknown party won election suddenly overnight, and you expect that they were not partial. But I don't see that coming to play with this current crop of appointees that has appointed to conduct this coming local government election.
Well, this is about the size of that conversation as it concerns Rivers State, where Justice Adam Turaki Mohammed had fixed April 14 to hear a suit seeking to stop the appointment of 23 local government administrators and the reconstitution of suspended boards, commissions, and parastatals to include the Rivers State Electoral Commission was to be heard. Pending this appointment, where the Vice Admiral Ibas retired, has now gone on to appoint them less than 24 hours following that court judgment. Now, I would look to discuss Plateau State from a solemn background of recurrent killings that have plagued Plateau ever since the just crisis of the early 2000s. Governor Caleb Mutfwang, speaking to the media, has tagged those killings as genocidal and sponsored, accusing Fulani headers of perpetrating dastardly acts in Boko's local government community. Now, this has also seen an action from the army where they have deployed tactical squads to see how they can rescue the situation. But, Doctor, from a background of an issue that stemmed from what was dubbed ethno-religious crisis in the early 2000s, in the last 2 years consecutively, we've seen targeted attacks in Mangu, in Boko's local government area, and some parts of Bassa.
Yes.
What do you make of this Governor Mutfwang's accusation of these attacks being coordinated and sponsored?
You see, when we're talking, I said that when governors make certain statements, it raises some concern. Yes, the fact that he's governor of the state and the chief security officer of that state, I want to believe that, or say that his statement or comment is speculative. What I mean speculative, he's not even very sure of the people or set of people or group of people that came to carry out that act. That's the act on the people of Bokos. As governor, before making statements like that, I expect that a proper investigation,
Detailed security reports,
is carried out. Don't hurriedly make those kind of statements. Carry out a proper investigation. While carrying out that investigation, it will unravel the true position, right? And also, it now give him the opportunity to even know the solution to apply.
Doctor, just to add to that, this is not the first time Governor Caleb Mutfwang is making the statements.
Exactly.
Earlier in 2023, he said that there are fifth elements within the government acting as non-state actors. So off the back of that, and this again, do you think that he has a case of non-trust in those saddled with the responsibility to protect the state?
Yes. You see, a whole lot is wrong with issues bordering on the insecurity in Plateau, especially in Bokos. Now, there's this two key elements or factors. One is, what do you call it now? Expansion of agricultural areas. Now, there's this population explosion. Whether we like it or not, the population of 15, 20, 30 years ago is not the same as now. Now, as the population grows, is the farming community. They must expand their farming areas, which of course is definitely must expand their farming areas. And the herders, right, also need this own land to graze their cattle. Now, these things has to do with land ownership and grazing rights. Now, the issue in this Bokos has to do with herders and farmers. So the kinetic approach to it, for me, is about 10%. Then you have 90% of non-kinetic approach. What is happening? Now, the rainy season has come. The farmers need to go back to their farm, and the herders need to graze their cattle. Now, it's for you to call these warring parties Now, the perpetrators of these acts, where are they? The ones that committed the act in 2023 December, what has happened to them? Were they arrested? Have they been tried in court? No arrest. If they were arrested, the police should come and tell us how far they have gone with the matter. So there's no even information with regards to the perpetrators of the act in 2023. Now it has happened again. They are all gathered. The NSA was there, the CDS was there, the Chief of Army Staff was there, and they have gone back there. They are applying same measures. At the end of the day, those deployments will be retrieved, right? And the communities now will be now left at the mercy of these same perpetrators. I call them perpetrators because I cannot call them herdsmen. I cannot call them bandits. I cannot call them terrorists. I cannot call them marauders because an investigation has not revealed
who they are.
So they are just perpetrators of criminal acts. So if a proper investigation is carried out, very detailed, then it will clearly establish that these are the set of people that are coming to do this. They come kill. In this one, they have killed about over 50 persons, and none of them that came to kill was killed by the host community. If they had killed 1 or 2 persons in defending their community, right, would have known from their facial appearance or whatever, or if they were arrested from confession, would have known who they are, where they are coming from, right? So how well are these communities even they come attacking people, killing people. You people don't prepare yourself to see how to defend yourself when these people come. You have local hunters that are in these communities and other. If it's the possibility of carrying your dang gun, which is allowed, and see how to go against or confront these enemies that come to confront you people. But people are just there. They will come kill people and go. The next time they will come again, kill people and go. And that is why when these leaders of our countries, when they go there, they are only addressing victims. The perpetrators are not there. So how do you now address the issue? How do you now go to the root cause of the issue when the perpetrators of these acts are not there?
Now, you've faulted the deployments of police assets and tactical squads.
It's just a temporary measure.
We saw a further protest by Omoyele Sowore, who accused the IGP directly. He first questioned his elongated tenure. Secondly, he questioned his approach to addressing security matters, much in Plateau State, saying that he's retired and tired and should exit office.
Yeah, for the elongation, I think it was done within the law, right? Because the Police Act, talked about tenure. The office of an IGP now is not tenured 4 years. So if you are appointed as an IG and you just have 1 year to be 60, which 60 years is your retirement age, you don't quit or you don't leave when you are 60.
You clock 60. You have to stay till the end of the
tenure of 4 years, right? I think that is what is being applied there. Perhaps, or sure, you know him and all that. If he had gone, he's a lawyer, so he should know what he's saying. The fact is the man has been appointed and they started implementing or applying the Police Act with him while in office. So for me, I still within the framework of the law. That's it. Now, for him being tired, I think it's time we change our tactics, approach. That's why I said here, I said addressing this issue, when we want to apply the kinetic, for me, it's just 10%. The other remaining 90% is a non-kinetic approach to it. And with this, in addressing these issues, we should be devoid of politics, have that sentiment that I am going to, because I am governor, I am and I am an indigent, these people that are coming in are causing these issues are non-indigents and all that. So I'm going to take a position of defending my people. Don't look at it from that perspective, right? We're talking about relationship issue here. Before now, they've been living peacefully. What happened to the relationship, right? That is what we expect as the government to see how to address. In addressing the relationship issue now, you are looking at the root cause. How were they living peacefully? What changed? How do we now go back to the way we were living? Because there's need for coexistence.
Peaceful coexistence. At this point you're making now is a sentiment shared by Senator Dickett Plang, who was in our studios, and he looked at it from the perspective of land grabbing. He also said that in much of the words you used, that there's no place you don't find visitors. And if there are visitors in certain communities which before now was peaceful, they need to find a sharing formula that rebalances the situation. But if land grabbing is the issue now, and the government is aware, more like you've said, tactical squad had been deployed based on intelligence gathering to prevent certain land grabbing issues that would lead to violent deaths. Since these people are faceless, or if the governor knows them and is accusing their sponsors, can't there be a common ground in which the government strategically intervenes with allocating lands or even following the ban on open grazing, or find some way to settle it?
This thing needs a political solution. And who has the powers to do it? Is the governor, right? It's for the governor to put up a committee, because the problem we have in this country is that when committees are put up and their mandate is clearly spelled out, and they go out, carry out the mandate and return with some recommendation, the committee that you have set up sent them to go do their findings and come back and come up with recommendations. Those recommendations, they don't even look at it. So you must, first of all, look at the recommendation. Look at how you apply the recommendation. Then look at how you will sustain the recommendation. But did they do that? They just set up committees, give them money. At the end of the day, they come submit these recommendations, their findings. At the end of the day, they dump it on one shelf or in one shelf. That's not how to govern. Put up a committee. Look out for the ethnic groups that are there. I want these killings to stop. How do we go about it? Okay, headers, XYZ portion of land. This is where you graze, right? It doesn't make them owners of the land. It's just a temporary thing. You graze your cattle. Farmers, don't exit this point. Yeah? Draw a demarcation. For once things like this are considered, because we know that this has to do with land, farmers, headers. That's the only challenge that we have when it has to do with this. So in addressing it, the root cause, they need to go down. The traditional rulers that are from these very communities and other, engage them. The Fulani communities that are in these communities, we already know that the lands are not their ancestral lands. They only came. So preach peace. The Institute of Peace and Conflict Resolution and all that, National Orientation Agency at the state level, or even at the national level, you need to engage all these. There are stakeholders that you need to engage in issues like this, right? Ignorance is also playing a key role here. They need to be informed, right?
Now let's talk non-kinetic approach, because I was reading through the Inspector General of Police's charge to the Deputy Inspector General of Police, DIG Kazi, where he said that the tactical squad is also supposed to use specialized drones to enhance surveillance of the area. Most times on paper, it looks like a beautiful approach. In the implementation, how effective is drone surveillance and the response time of the tactical squads in areas where we've seen reprisal attacks recurrently, more than once, more than twice, in Bokos particularly?
Now, we're talking about the deployment of technology now, which is very important. But there's a lot technology does beyond what the humans do. But there must be that collaboration. Whoever that is using the drone must be in constant communication with the foot soldiers or the foot officers that will be on ground. Now, issue of drone, yes, is a way to go, but I still stand my grounds that it's a temporary measure. We're talking about the root cause. Once the root cause is addressed, then we won't be talking about the usage of drones.
Well, Doctor, hold your thoughts there. Dr. Steve Okwori, a security consultant and expert, is addressing the issues in Plateau State, particularly in Bokos, where on the 28th of March, an attack by suspected headers left more than 50 persons dead. We'll revisit this conversation in a bit to talk about the use of technology and the charge from the Inspector General of Police to the tactical squad deployed under the command of Deputy Inspector General Kazi in Bokos. We'll be right back to revisit this conversation in a bit. Well, thanks for staying with us on the program this morning. We're looking at the insecurity and persistent killings in Plateau State, particularly in Bokos, where the recent spate of attacks happened on the 28th of March 2025. Off the back of that, Governor Caleb Boutefang, the governor of Plateau State, has said 64 communities have now been taken over by bandits. In response to this, the IGP, Kayode Egbetokun, has deployed a tactical squadron assets to Bokos under the supervision of DIG Kazi to ensure that these recurrent attacks do not occur. Still in our studios this morning, Dr. Steve Okwori is discussing the use of technology and non-kinetic approaches to resolve insecurity. Now, Doctor, just before we took that break, you were talking about the need for collaboration between those manning the drones and the boots on ground. Pick up from where you left off.
Yes, because there must be that communication, right? So that in addressing the issues, the perpetrators or people that indulge in acts of criminality like that can be arrested. But the unfortunate thing now is that the perpetrators of this very act in Bokos, I don't think they are there, you know. So perhaps innocent persons or people might be picked, and maybe from there one or two information can come. But the actual perpetrators of this act are no longer there. So there's need for more detailed investigation that will lead to the actual perpetrators. Because if you don't get the actual perpetrators, then we have not done anything. We are not even thinking of, we are not addressing the issue. Let us get the actual perpetrators. I asked a question about the perpetrators of the 2023 December violent act like this too. Who are they? Where are they? Have they been arrested? What has the government said in respect of the ones that perpetrated that very act? It's very possible that they were not arrested then, and same people, you know, have come, regrouped, and came and struck again.
This brings into question the suspicion of migration of bandits, because we had the news in Ondo where there are now 3 lifeless bodies that are headless. There was an earlier intelligence that bandits are migrating. Now, I don't know if it's the challenge of just the North Central, because in Kogi we also saw women demonstrating almost half naked, lamenting kidnappings and killings. What's happening to this pattern of bandit attacks in certain states and across certain corridors?
These are criminals. The Nigerian government has decided to give them names, call them bandits, they are all criminals. Some Nigerians, in collaboration with foreigners, carrying out this violent act on people, on innocent citizens that go about their lawful businesses. Now, I think there's a whole lot that the government needs to do. And I tell you that, are we prepared in doing the right thing? It's not by issuing statements. The president will issue a statement that he has given directives for these criminals to be brought to book and punished severely and all. These are just mere statements. We should see that these people are arrested. Situations where we don't see where they are arrested, we see a whole lot videos on social media, children, 13, 14 years, bearing arms, AK-47. How do these videos emanate? Where are they coming from? Which platform did they come? Which service provider network did they use in sending these videos to the social media? A whole lot is wrong. The NCC, that is a regulatory body, the service provider. My brother, are we prepared to do the right thing?
And we've done need for SIM linkage.
We have done a whole lot of that. And still, criminals carry out acts of criminality using SIMs that are not registered in this country. I think we should go beyond just that mere registration. If I have a NIM, and my NIM number is imputed into the NIMS's system, my NIM should be able, on their system, should be able to tell them where my location is at that particular point in time. If I am in Makadi and they impute my NIM number on their system, it should tell them that I'm in Makadi, right? I think we should improve on our technology to go beyond just that NIM number or having that number linked with our SIM. Now, if a SIM or a phone sends such video, who records that video where you see people are killed, they are videoed, people are manhandled, maltreated in the forest by bandits and other criminal elements, money's ransom paid, you see them sharing it. These videos, where do they come from? So a whole lot is wrong. What's the communication minister doing? So I think that this thing is not rocket science. In fighting insecurity, it's not rocket science. I know fighting insecurity issues has to do with a lot of money. Nigeria has the resources to fight insecurity. Innocent citizens are there that go about their lawful businesses, are there in the forest. Ransom collected, and a lot needs to be done. We are tired of this condemnation. We are tired of statements coming from leaders sympathizing with victims and victims' families. No, let us back this talk with action.
Now, this action we're calling for in recent history has seen some communities resort to self-help.
Yes.
And quite sadly so, in Urumi, Edo State, certain hunters who were traveling were lynched because the community had complained of incessant kidnappings and such violence unleashed on them without any response from the government. Now, to curtail this reoccurrence of self-help and the condemnations of jungle justice in line with what is going on in Plateau State, how does the government step in before the community resorts to self-help?
Now, I've said it times without number that we have a whole lot of communities that lack security presence, conventional security presence. But the issue in Urumi is even a semi-urban area that there was police and vigilante. Now, it was in the news that it was the vigilante that arrested those hunters. It wasn't for the vigilante to take the laws into their hands. They had police. You see such people armed, whatever arms that they bear, you hand over them to the police. They didn't do that. I think the vigilante also, the government of Edo also failed in the area of training their local vigilante, because these people need to be trained, retrained, because you cannot begin to apply your own common knowledge when it has to do with issues bordering on insecurity. They would have been told or trained that in the event where you arrest such suspected criminals, you hand it over to the police, because it's not your duty to begin to take their lives the way they did. It is wrong. It is very wrong. The section 36 of our Constitution talks about presumption of innocence. They were innocent at that point in time. They were never tried in any court, and you took their lives in that dastardly manner. It is not acceptable. So, our government, just the way I said, the president, the state, we don't even have local government chairmen anymore. We have them just on paper. They don't function. The governors have killed the third tier of government. In this third tier of government, or under the third tier of government, are these our rural communities. And we have a local government that is not functional. Some of these areas where these crimes happen or violent acts happen, there are no roads to those areas. What do you expect from a third tier of government? The third tier of government is expected to make rural roads accessible. They don't even have the resources to make those roads accessible. The money that is supposed to go to them, the governors collect them. So we must have to make the three tiers of government very functional. Just the way the federal is having security council meetings at the federal, the state also has or usually have their state security council meeting. The local government chairman should also have their own local security council meeting, where the heads of local vigilante, the Nigerian Forest Security Service, all those local structures within the local government, traditional rulers, and other critical stakeholders, religious leaders, and others at the local government level can also have their own local security council meeting. All this, the chairman of local government needs resources to make this happen. With that, you are getting the information. Traditional rulers come from their local communities, they bring information to this local government level. So as local government chairman, you're also the chief security officer of your local government. But in the event where you are not functioning as local government chairman, what do you expect the chairman to do? So we must allow the three tiers of government to function. And with that, we can address some of these issues that we're talking about. So the governor should calm down. The Supreme Court has given judgment how and why the local government structure should function. They should allow them function.
Well, we must thank you, Doctor, for your brilliant submissions on the program this morning. We appreciate you for making our time to join us on the conversation.
Thank you for having me.